All right, we're back on to me. So we're going to talk about Oracle, actually. Oracle, as we know, is a big tech company, has been for a very long time. And they just had their earnings call yesterday. Good news and bad news, really. They beat the analyst estimates on both earnings and revenue, right? Just to let you know. They reported 10.1 billion in revenue, which was a lot higher than what the analysts wanted. However, their stocks went down post earnings call by about 8 to 10%. Now, I think that was the reason I'm going to talk to you guys about this and really just put this at the foray of our discussion today. And it's really mixed feelings because they've increased dividends. They said we have a good quarter. We keep it on going. And this is what we're going to do. And it's a good steady stock. Now, and before I give some of my opinions, why do you think that could be, Reggie or CS?
I guess before we dig into that, for the listeners who are watching, can you just explain to them what exactly Oracle's business is? Because this is definitely not a company that they will be as familiar with, right?
Got it. So Oracle is effectively a tech company. It's mainly a cloud system, and they sell sort of SaaS and software as well as enterprise software. So they sort of create softwares for companies to run their CRM system, marketing system. Anything that you need to use it for, you probably can go to Oracle for it and they can develop it for you. Right? So
can I add a bit of color on that?
Please.
So Oracle is the founder of CRM before CRM was a thing. Right, so the modern Salesforce, Hootsuite, or HubSpot, whatever all those guys, they're just taking a piece of Oracle's business and adding a SaaS model, a software as a service model, subscription model onto it to reduce the barrier of entry and kind of allow more people to use these software. So Oracle, together with Microsoft, together with Sun Microsystems, a lot of these less famous software names today, they are all giants in the enterprise space. Okay, if you didn't know, almost all your hotels, Marriott, Hilton, and all the guys, They all use Oracle's end-to-end service system. Right, so from the check-in to the managing your SKUs to tracking the customer service experience and all the stuff, Oracle actually has a stronghold in this hotel resort management space, right? So this is not the only space that they're in, but as with any other enterprise software companies, they had their days. So they had their time, they had their exciting times of growth and monetizing and a lot of big margins in the space at that point in time, and especially in the era where there were not a lot of other providers, right? So they were considered asset light because at that point in time, the margins were amazing. But as margins start to shrink, you consider them asset heavy because your upside is limited now, right? So relative to when they are a software company, but they're asset heavy. And that's why I'm going to tell a lot of people that software companies are going to be considered asset heavy if they can no longer innovate into something new that can give them high margin and their pricing power in the market. All right, so this is something that a lot of people are not aware and not looking at it from this angle yet. So yeah, Oracle is one of those guys. They have stopped innovating and not stopped innovating in the sense that they're not progressing, but hey, a lot of other people are way more aggressive in the software space. Look at Microsoft, look at CRM, look at all these other guys, Salesforce, right? Oracle is not keeping up with new product launches, and I think a lot of the investors are very concerned about whether or not they can continue to grow revenues amidst increasing costs of labor, right? Because as tech labor becomes a crunch, it becomes more and more expensive to hire tech people. Yeah.
Fair enough. So yes, what are some of your thoughts?
For me, I haven't heard of Oracle for I don't know how long until you brought it up, really, right?
Right.
And I like to think that, as someone who's kind of worked in more full-time roles, with systems in place, they have never showed up as a potential service provider, right? So for me personally, I don't even know what they're, what exactly are they trying to compete against or compete for right now? I guess that's how I look at it.
Got it. So fair enough. So actually, just like how Reggie was talking about the hotel industry, they've also very much sort of cornered the accounting industry for a big sort of medium to large enterprise, right? So Oracle owns NetSuite. And NetSuite is brilliant when it comes to sort of multifaceted or multi-country accounts and finances and all the hooplas that go with it and all its nuances and all of that, right? And they've effectively cornered that market. Xero, as we know, is trying to enter that market as well, but still quite a way to go. And completely agree with you, Reggie, and CS, right? So Oracle has been around since donkey years. If you hear Lotus Notes, you probably have Oracle right there next to it, right? So, of course, Lotus Notes by IBM. But one of the things that probably made it fall was the fact that it misses estimates on innovation and specifically cloud app growth. Now, Oracle is trying to innovate, right? And what we could say is probably not innovate fast enough, as say Microsoft. And where they are missing out is that market share in the cloud space. And if we see what they're really good at and their bread and butter effectively shrinking to a certain extent, are our investors, even though they've achieved their targets, so on and so forth, moving into maybe, number one, the market of the future, which is cloud, SaaS, etc., or two, they're not innovating fast enough and their stock price isn't rising fast enough. So now our users or investors going more for capital growth than dividends? That's another question to even think about, right? What are your thoughts before we?
I mean, if you look at one of their closest competition at one point in time is Microsoft, right? So Microsoft, IBM, Oracle, Sun Microsystems, they are all that era of software companies. Okay, don't ask me why I know. I don't use them. I just do a lot of study in a lot of these companies, and we've done a lot of geek out, so I have a clearer idea of some of these guys, right? So IBM went through the process of acquiring Red Hat. They tried to do a hard pivot, a hard turn to sell off their hardware businesses and go into software, and it's seeing some numbers. We're seeing some changes, and the market is reevaluating where IBM stands and what have you, right? So Microsoft went the other way, right? Instead of doing a hard pivot and selling out their core businesses, Microsoft went the other way of buying up GitHub, buying up Xbox, buying up a lot of all these bigger ecosystem player, and it's all led by their CEO, right? So the new CEO of Microsoft, wait, what's his name?
Satya
Nadella?
Yeah.
Where?
Satya Nadella.
Okay, yeah, Satya Nadella, he was the one behind a lot of all these big cloud purchases. All right, so revolutionary individual. At the point in time, Microsoft was getting a very lousy CEO, what it was rated as one of the worst. So after he came in, they bought up a lot. So GitHub and a lot of the other more cloud-based ecosystems were bought during his time, right? So they did a hard pivot and look at where they are today, right? So they have the power of enterprise softwares, which has very, very big cash flow, and they can continue to invest in the longer term growth of open source and all the SaaS kind of businesses, which takes a longer time to recoup a lot of capital, right? So whereas Oracle has been stuck in the past, I don't see new innovation, and I think they're very slow. Relative to all the other guys, there are so many other better players. Whether you buy Adobe, Microsoft, even IBM, they all have done a better job in keeping up with relevancy, right? So Oracle is one of those companies where if you compare across the best in class, they have fallen off to the back of the class already at this point in time, right? So yeah, totally fair for the company to be punished from a stock price standpoint.
Yeah, that said, like the PE ratio is still around 20, right? Which is still very comparable to all these larger companies.
Yes.
So as an investor, like you would need to really have like a clear like read into why you should be looking to Oracle versus some of these other companies which are have much clearer growth plans.
Yeah. Agreed.
Fair enough. I mean, I guess if you're looking at a bit of a stable income, getting a bit of dividends here and there, it could be something that you might want to look into.
No, even then, I think there are better companies.
No?
Personal perspectives, not influencing, not advising, and
course.
not influencing your investment decisions. But yeah, guys, there are so many other better companies out there. Okay, so yeah, just saying.
Awesome.